Good afternoon. We are pleased to have you join us for our second in a series of town halls hosted by Digital Promises League of Innovative Schools. The COVID-19 pandemic has brought to light the extreme inequities that exist around access and digital divide. Given their geography and their context, rural school systems face a unique obstacle when addressing digital equity in both in and out of school. Today, we will have the pleasure to hear superintendents from the Digital Promise League of Innovative Schools discuss the unique perspectives of digital equity in rural communities. I'm your host, Dwayne McCleary, the director of the League of Innovative Schools, and I'm a proud product of a rural school district, Williamsburg County Schools in Kingstree, South Carolina. I would like to also welcome our co-host, Ms. Kimberly Smith, the executive director of the League of Innovative Schools. Kim will now share the format of today's session.
Great, thanks, Dwayne. Good afternoon, folks. We are happy to have you here for our conversation on digital equity in rural districts. Just an overview of the format for this conversation. We are going to begin with a set of prepared questions for our superintendent leaders for the first half hour of this conversation. And then at 4:30 Eastern time, we will open up the floor for questions from the audience. So we invite you to hit the QA button at the bottom of your Zoom screen to submit questions, and I'll be monitoring the QA area, and we will share your questions in about a half an hour. So feel free to post. I'll keep an eye on it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Kim. All righty. Now let's welcome our League of Innovative School panelists. Mr. Tim Bobrowski, Superintendent of Owsley County Schools in Kentucky. Ms. Ann Linson, Superintendent of East Snowville Schools Cooperation in Indiana. And Ms. Suzanne Lacey, Superintendent of Talladega County Schools in Alabama. Welcome. All right, so they're joining us now, and Tim's going to turn on his camera. All right, so let's dive in. You all work in rural districts, but did any of you attend a rural district growing up?
I attended a rural district here in Alabama, so I certainly understand the limitations and the culture of a rural school district. And of course, when I was in school, technology was not much of anything at that point. So everything was done in traditional manner of paper and pencil.
And I was fortunate enough to go through a rural school district, one of which I'm superintendent now of. So I have a great familiarity with our local culture and our local context and our local folks. And I think that's important when we all make decisions that are of the best interest of kids.
And I attended a school district, I guess it could be considered rural, about an hour east of Indianapolis, but it is a college town. So it has a little different flair or feel than what a rural school district would have. But as Suzanne mentioned with the technology, I'm so old that we learned how to type on a manual typewriter. So there you go.
No, and you're not that old, and I'm sure.
Oh, you'd be surprised.
All right, so I want you guys to think. I want you to describe your district's geography, economic makeup, student population to kind of paint a picture for folks of where you live, work, and teach. And we'll start with you, Ann.
Okay. East Snowville School Corporation is located about 30 minutes north of Fort Wayne, which happens to be the second largest city in Indiana. And we are considered rural. We have about 3,600 students. Our free reduced is somewhere in the 50% range, although 3 of our school buildings are pushing 70%. So we have 5 elementaries, we have 1 middle, 1 high school, and 1 alternative learning center. Our English language learner population is minimal, like generally most rural districts around here are, but that population is primarily Arabic speaking students. So as a rural district, that certainly presents a challenge for us to be able to provide the support that they need. We are largely manufacturing, as well as healthcare. We have a hospital in our community. We have a couple of industries that produce medical parts, so to speak, plates that you would use in surgeries. And we have a severe housing shortage right now. So we have no homes for families to move into. So our community pretty much stays small and stays contained until we get some of that housing.
Thank you. Susan, would you like to share?
Yes, in Talladega County Schools, we have 17 schools located throughout our school district. From the most northern school to the most southern school is a 60-mile radius. So I always say in every nook and cranny in Talladega County, we have a school and a school community. So logistically, it's somewhat of a challenge, just moving around the county from point A to point B. Our school population, as far as the 7,300 students, 72% of those students qualify for free and reduced lunch. So one of our main priorities during this pandemic has been fulfilling the needs of food insecure families and students. So just as much as we've been working on academics, we've also been working to provide meals and connecting with local agencies to make sure that everyone is fed. Throughout Talladega County, as far as business and industry, Honda manufacturing plant is located in our county. And there are many companies that support Honda, subsidiary companies that provide parts and things of that nature. But of course, they have had shutdowns and been on modified schedules as well, just like the school district. There's a lot of farmland. It's beautiful farm country, and you see that as part of our rural school district. We are the 5th largest employer in the county, with quite close to 1,000 employees in Talladega County schools. So 7 high schools. Our largest school has 753 students, and our smallest school has about 164 students. So we have configurations of enrollment between those numbers, and very personalized schools as far as everyone knows everyone, and very family atmosphere, community to community. And in most of our communities, the school is the main hub of what goes on in the community.
Thank you.
Just going to give you just a brief outline of Owsley County, Kentucky. We're a very small school district. We have 700 kids, have 2 schools, have 89% free and reduced lunch. We live in a very economically depressed area. Owsley County Schools is the largest employer. We have very little other job opportunities where we're at. So we are probably when you say rural disadvantaged school districts, we're probably top in the nation of that unfortunate designation. So we have a lot of struggles here. The biggest takeaway that we have in our school district and our community is that we do live in a gigabit community, which when you're in the foothills of Appalachian Mountains, that is huge for us because of the connectivity level. 95% of our homes are wired with fiber, which is a unique characteristic, and it's very powerful for us to be able to utilize the infrastructure to provide our kids with the 21st century skills that they need. So that's a little background information on where I'm at. And
all right, our next question. So looking at what systems and infrastructure did you put in place prior to this pandemic that enabled you to transition to the distance learning? Susan, we'll start with you.
Okay. I think we were pretty ready for a change in learning, even though we still have limited internet connectivity throughout our district. Every student in Talladega County does have a device, so we felt very confident about that. And for 12 years, we have worked very diligently to immerse our schools in technology and to provide a one-to-one initiative throughout our county. So that was a big plus, as we had to transition very quickly to a new way of learning. But again, the connectivity throughout the district has prevented every child from being able to use their personal device because either the connectivity is not there, it's very spotty, and we've had to, provide a difference for those children as far as their learning modality. But the personalized approach to learning and the immersion of technology to support learning has been alive and well for 12 years. So we definitely felt that to be an advantage. We also have several of our buses, 12 buses that were Wi-Fi retrofitted. So we could take those buses to various locations throughout our county to help families and students that did not have that internet connectivity to connect in locations that were close to their home and be able to provide that support that way. So we were very fortunate to have our rolling study hall project come to play during the pandemic. Even though there were no kids on the bus, we were able to take the buses to the communities and provide that service for our families.
Thank you. Anne?
Yes, I feel very fortunate that we had quite a bit of infrastructure in place. Like Suzanne, we've been at it 9 years, not quite as long as they have, but all of our students were provided a device 9 years ago, all at one time. So that was very nice to be able to do that. Our students in K4 use iPads, and then our students in 5 through 12 have a Windows-based laptop. And when they receive that device, it's pretty much theirs. So it's they get the new laptop in 5th grade and 9th grade, and it's theirs for 4 years. The iPads pass along. One of the things that we do is our students take those devices home during the summer. They take them home every day. And our goal has always been to make that use of technology a natural part of instruction on a daily basis, a tool that they can use to learn, that prepares them for college and workplace and life success. So having that focus made it very easy for us to transition to this online learning. We have technology coaches in all of our buildings, so that's been very helpful to provide that professional development to our staff. We have online learning for our staff. Anything they really want, we can provide that training. What our coaches also do is they vet some of those software and some of those strategies and tools for them to save them the time and some of that effort, but really get them to embrace some of that software. Our community has been very supportive, and because of that, the main town, they put in free Wi-Fi access, so you can drive along Main Street and park anywhere along the street and have access to that Wi-Fi. Obviously, our school buildings, our parking lots, our stadiums, and most of the restaurants now, our libraries, as well as our YMCA work very closely with us to make sure that our hardware works seamlessly off of their access. And it's been a wonderful partnership for us. And because we've been at it so long, and I'm sure Suzanne has noticed this also, it's an expectation now. When we first started, I can't say that it went smoothly, but I'll tell you that our parents have been very appreciative as they've listened to other districts in the area and other states and the frustrations that those families are having. And it has certainly provided a new value, help them better understand what our students have, what we're trying to do for them, because they've been able to continue their education rather smoothly, and other area districts have not. So we feel very fortunate. And when we put this into place, a big focus was to make sure it was sustainable, so that once we implemented this 9 years ago, there was no going back after grants. We don't have to go after grants. We don't have to resell this idea. We don't have a referendum. We don't have to bond. It is a sustainable plan that I know when I leave, it will be in place for many years to come. There's no going back, so to speak.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Being a product of a rural school district, and also I taught my first 6 years in a rural school district, what we found was a lot of our schools were at least 20 miles apart. So whenever we had to do professional development and training, like that was an obstacle in itself. Yeah. So my question to you is, what aspects of being a rural district made the transition to distance learning easier or more difficult? Now I'll start with you, Anne.
Okay. So you know what, honestly, the easy and difficult are the same one in a rural district. And I'm gonna go to community on that one. Because when you have a small community, they influence each other very easily. And so if an influential group believes in something, then they influence others. If they don't, they influence others. So it's breaking through that group. And once you get through that group, then you've got the whole community and complete buy-in. So when we first started, it was a little bit of a struggle to get that buy-in. And when we made the decision that every student would have a device and they would take them home, we had some families that, well, I'm going to give you an example. I went to a Rotary meeting to introduce this, to talk to the Rotary members. And at the end of the meeting, I had two community members come up to me. One of them, literally her finger was inches away from my face. And she was worked up over this because our free reduced students did not deserve it. And that we should not give it to them because they would sell the devices and you know, those kinds of comments. And of course, I was appalled, of course. But that's where sometimes that closed-mindedness of a small community can get in the way. But once you get through that, then it's no issue. You know, it's so that was probably the hard. Once we got them, then they're all in, and makes it much easier for us. And then I would say the most difficult really is the lack of broadband. We don't have full internet access, and so that continues to be a struggle.
The principal, I've been superintendent here 9 years, and it's a challenge every day I walk out the door with the what Ann alluded to earlier about the mindset and changing the mindset and having folks understand what you're trying to do, regardless if you've lived here all your life or not. It's a constant struggle, but I think if there's any positives from the coronavirus, it would be that our families and our students have been, everybody has been forced into that mode of thinking now, and how long it sticks, we don't know. But I think sometimes people misinterpret what we're trying to do for, it's just something that we want to do. And we not only want to do it, but we also feel like that the technology piece is getting kids ready for their world, not for ours. And sometimes I have to spend a lot of time communicating that with folks. So, but to go further, that's a little bit more of what I deal with on my end, and a little more local context here in Owsley County. You know, we always have folks in our communities that are going to be resistors, and they're resistors to either new ideas or filling out the census or little things like that, you know, who would think that that's a big deal, but for some reason in our community it is, and it always has been. And I've had to come with grips that there's only so many things that I can control. And not everybody shares the same values, obviously, that a lot of folks in our communities share, and that's kind of unfortunate. But we try to plug education as hard as we can and as frequently as we can, and usually the kids that buy in and take off, or they do exceptionally well when they go on to post-level education.
Wow. Thank you, Tim. Susan, we're going to ask you the question. What aspects of being a rural district for the transition to distance learning easier or more difficult?
Yeah, I think the most difficult certainly is the broadband, the connectivity, and not being able to really move that forward. That has been a consistent issue in our rural county for a long time. I think we also had to do a lot of public relations early on with selling to our families and our communities the importance of technology and the connectivity. Many of our residents throughout the county went to school there. They work there, they've lived their whole life there. So the manner in which they went to school was just how they thought it should continue to be, and did not see the importance that technology could provide and the efficiency that technology could provide for learning. I think one of the most important selling points in our school district have been our students, and we take them lots of places to demonstrate and to talk about the integration of technology and how technology supports their learning in powerful ways. So by having students' voice in their comments throughout our county and across our state and our nation, honestly, people really started to listen about, wow, they really took on a new leadership role as far as advocates for the use of technology in their classrooms. And that in turn really helped to support the teachers who were a little shy about the use of technology. And it's really become a very collaborative team with students working alongside teachers and vice versa. With the use of technology. So we've taken lots of steps forward. Like Ann said, it wasn't so easy, and lots of steps back. But every step forward and every step back, we value and appreciate those learning moments that we've had to just get it better as time goes on.
Thank you so much, Suzanne. Before we move on, I want to remind folks we're about to transition in the next few minutes to the Q&A session. Make sure you put your questions in the Q&A section so that the panelists can answer them. Tim, I want to jump back to you. I want you to talk a little bit about your KVIC that you got going on in your district. I think that's something very impressive.
Sure. Well, we, and of course, every I guess the history and the story here, it's very hard and difficult to move to a one-to-one type initiative where, again, like Ann, we allow our kids to take our Chromebooks home. And, we got pushback, but the pushback was more from our staff than it was from our parents, just simply because of the fear of destroying them, not taking care of the devices and so forth. So, we've overcome that. And of course we have, in some cases, they were correct and they were right. And we just had to use it as educational experiences for kids to take care of their things. But to get to where we're at now, our educational cooperative here with KVAC, that's Kentucky Valley Educational Cooperative, they had a Race to the Top grant several years ago. So all the school districts in that particular area and the cooperative received a lot of money to purchase devices. So they really gave us a lot of seed money to get off the ground and get going in the whole 17 county cooperative. And then, of course, utilizing, getting those is one thing, but then the training piece has come a long way with not only with what they do, but I also leverage off of another cooperative that I have, that I'm a member of KEDC, where we do receive some more technical trainings. We receive a lot of other things that cooperatives in Kentucky can do. And if you don't know what those are mandated by the state. And it's kind of broadened they've kind of sectioned the state up into different quadrants, and the cooperatives are there to assist and guide school districts. So it is an outreach kind of process that we have available to us, and very much appreciative because without the seed money from the Race to the Top grant, as a small school district that lives in a very impoverished area with very few tax revenues coming in, it's very hard for us to make a move and make a purchase of the magnitude that we had to make.
Wow, thank you. Thank you, Tim. Next question. How have you approached distance learning for students with special needs or disabilities? We'll start with you, Ann.
Well, our special needs students, if they are able to utilize that device, then they have one. And we maximize the tools that we can with those students. During this process, of course, we all know you have students that are not capable and don't communicate. And so we're back to old school. So our teachers have created activities. They deliver them once a week so that the students have that activity. It's been really nice that we have a teacher who, with her special needs students, that it's more of a life skills type course. She was teaching them how to cook. They were making pigs in a blanket, but she used Skype or Zoom, and she was in her kitchen and she was demonstrating and watching them, and they were in their home kitchens and cooking right along with her. So she delivered all of the supplies the day before, and they were watching her, asking questions. A few of them had parents helping along, which is always wonderful. So, it was just, there are so many creative ways that we can utilize technology to support the learning of all of our students. And that was one example.
Wow. I love a good pig in a blanket. You have to invite me next time.
I know.
All right. Susan?
I think in much the same way as Anne has described. I think one of the greatest byproducts of working through a platform like Zoom and connecting not only with our special needs children, but our regular ed children is just the concentration on relationships and that ability to see each other. We found out really quickly that there was a strong desire for our kids and our families to be able to see the teacher. And that just brought on a level of confidence and strength in our relationship building skills. Early on in Talladega County, we adopted 2 primary goals through the pandemic, and that was customer service and communication. So I think that has sustained our efforts on every aspect of what we were trying to accomplish through this time. And for special needs students, certainly that has been challenging for some that cannot connect through technology means, but for the majority of those students and populations, it has been a great tool, not only to support learning, but also the social emotional aspect of their learning. And it's just thrilling to see their faces light up when the teacher pops on the screen, and it's just like a modified classroom experience. And those are the reactions that we want, even though we cannot be right there in the same room with our children. We want to be able to strengthen the relationship through connectivity.
Awesome. Thank you, Suzanne. Tim?
Yes, I was hoping that I could got my special ed director on the call today, but she has really done a great job with the expectation level and our connectivity to allow physical therapy, occupational therapy, other types of support learning for our special ed teachers to provide our special ed kids. And I guess an advantage I have is we use this on our days now with my own son, who requires both. So I get to see it, I get to do it. The physical therapist is at her home, we're at our home, and she's guiding the process, and I am facilitating her and almost being like an aide to her as we go through the process. So to me, I look at that and I say with connectivity, there is no reason why, in speech, there's no reason why this can't be a part of our digital learning experience with special needs students at their homes.
Awesome. And our last question before we turn it over to our town hall. What takeaways could larger districts benefit from, the things that you've learned? And we'll start with you, Tim.
Well, I guess from a larger school district, I think the big takeaway is preparedness. And I think a lot of folks have to understand that nobody has ever endured the pandemic like we have in 2020. But, for our purposes as a small rural district, we were doing NTI work or non-traditional instructional days prior to the COVID virus. Mm-hmm. So we were really at an advantage in Kentucky because this was a norm that we were doing each year and have for the last 9 years. So we feel like that we've got a lot. We've got a lot of the procedures worked out and the processes to a point in which we can be very good at it. But for those folks that were never a non-traditional instructional district as we have been in Kentucky since COVID, a lot of folks didn't have the devices to send home the kids. Yeah. A lot of folks hadn't went through the procedures of training their teachers as to the best practices and using the SMAR model and those kind of things that really make the learning experience as good as it can be. And that would be a definite takeaway, is you have to ask that question is, when school resumes, how prepared are you? And I don't think you can wait too long to make that decision, because if you're not already there, you're behind to begin with. But it really put people scrambling when everybody had to go home and still maintain an educational level for kids. And if it's not that, it's packets. It's either or. And I think the best of both worlds is there. It's at itself. But you got to be prepared for about anything and everything as superintendents, as we all know, because we never know what tomorrow's going to hold, right?
Yeah. Thank you, Tim. Ann?
Yes, I'm going to put a little bit of a shameless plug in here, but what I would say that larger districts, funding tends to be their biggest obstacle. So let's take that off the plate. Let's say funding is not an issue. Well, through Digital Promise, I was given the opportunity to do a TED Talk a few years ago. And that talk was on, titled When 95 is Better Than 100. And so many times we get hung up on the 5% of our students who make poor choices, the students who concern us, that we think might steal it, that we think might break it. And it's really about make your decisions based on that 95 that deserve it, that generally try to make the right decisions. And trust them, you know, take a leap, take the risk. You will be surprised at how well our students are able to handle this. If you just, you know, don't worry about that 5%, you just deal with them as they cause the issues, but move forward with that 95%. And I think that's the biggest thing. Take the risk, jump in. Our kids are worth it. They deserve it. And they are much more mature and able to handle these devices than what some folks believe.
You're here. Suzanne?
I think the big takeaway that might help larger districts, and early on I kept hearing, well, we're not ready for this. We're not ready. We're not ready. And I can promise you, you're never going to be ready. So you just have to just jump off that cliff and make sure that you have a framework that prepares the teachers, the students, the families, the communities along the way, and stay the course. Because there were moments in time that I thought, I am a crazy superintendent forever even thinking about this, but I'm so thankful that we are in the position that we are in now. And I think another big takeaway is to ensure that your teachers and staffs are trained to support learning through technology. And that's a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of professional development. And you know, we take pride in our teachers and others, administrators throughout Talladega County who lead with confidence and poise with the integration of technology. And this is the perfect time just to see how good we are during a pandemic, where we can provide that extra bit of instruction and support for students and families through the utilization of technology. So that's a constant training moment, and, you know, crafting leaders, getting others to step up to lead with technology. We have numerous ways that we do that in Talladega County, experts down the hall who are assigned to groups of teachers within the school to help troubleshoot and teach tech tools and things of that nature. Our DLP coaches, thanks to the League of Innovative Schools, a great plug for them, for you guys who helped to train our administrators and all of our technology coaches at Google headquarters a few years back during the summer. That was a changing moment in the life of schools in Talladega County, because even though we had lots of technology, we were not using the technology to the highest level and the best way to support instruction. So that training was a game changer and continues to make a huge difference as we move forward and really perfect our craft of coaching and teaching with the use of technology. Thank
you so much. Now we're going to turn it over to Kim, who will now open up questioning from the audience.
All right. Well, the QA line is hot, and we are seeing a lot of questions around infrastructure. So I'm going to, different dimensions of infrastructure. So I'm going to kind of go down the list, and you all can address as you see fit. Folks want to understand how you were able to establish community partnerships or business partnerships or partnerships with ISPs, internet service providers. So they're really interested in infrastructure partnerships. Also, what short or long-term policy solutions did you pursue or were in place to really help you bring the infrastructure that you needed? And then a couple of questions around how you deal with the geography of the landscape that you're in with mountainous areas and forests as it relates to infrastructure with broadband. So that's kind of a whole package of infrastructure questions. And why don't we go to Ann first? You want to tackle any piece of that? You're on mute. You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. There were a lot of elements in there. Anyone in particular I should start? I mean, our infrastructure, we kind of live by an idea of do it right the first time. So we reached for the max with broadband. I mean, it was do it right the first time, so we didn't have the struggles. We have fiber to our direct community schools, but 2 of our schools are even more outliers than these, and so then they are we're not using fiber for them. And I can't think of the term that I'm missing on that one, but you probably know what it is where they are. So that has been that was critical. But I'll tell you what really lies at the root of our infrastructure are our tech staff. We are blessed to have amazing tech staff, and that's an area that we have not gone short on. So whatever that support is critical for our infrastructure, is to make sure that we have those folks that can support our students, support our the internet, so to speak, the networking and all. I don't know if I answered any of that.
No, that's helpful. Great, thank you, Ann. Suzanne, any partnerships you want to cite, any policies that have helped you move forward with access in your area?
I think partnerships are certainly important in every aspect of the school district. For us in Talladega County, I think it was a general understanding to policymakers, legislators, even our State Department of Education early on, how valuable the use of technology was. So I'm a firm believer in seeing is believing. So we had quite many opportunities for business and industry to come visit classrooms, for teachers to share and also students to share about their learning through the use of technology. And that was a real pivotal point for us throughout our school district, because those individuals started to take notice and really see the importance and the value of how technology could support learning. And sometimes we forget, and individuals forget after they're so excited about that great moment that they've seen in a school, and everyone kind of goes back to thinking and doing their same thing. But I know in our state, it has brought a new sense of urgency and awareness to the disparity of internet access throughout different spots throughout the county. So I think a very good byproduct and a good thing to come from this pandemic will be the increased urgency and notification among people that can really make a difference in moving this broadband issue forward. So, you know, we definitely early on wanted to showcase what we were doing, how we were doing it, the importance of how we were doing this, and the reasons why. And all of that was connected to college and career readiness, of course, a big push all across our nation. And what better way to see that in action is for those folks to be a part of our classrooms and have students and teachers explaining the usage.
Great, thanks. And then Tim, policies, partnerships in Kentucky.
I think of course, I'm going to use the term small, but from a rural small telephone cooperative, that is the infrastructure that feeds our 2 counties, Jackson and Owsley County, in Kentucky, with the fiber to the home. And of course, it was just simply due to their innovative approaches and going after federal dollars, making the infrastructure work and be sustainable in our area. You know, that is a partnership, a huge partnership from a community's perspective. Our schools in Kentucky have always had the best internet accessibility possible, and probably some of the highest in the country, because KDE, or Kentucky Department of Education, and David Couch's office there, they have always provided technology, and they see the importance of the technology piece. So Kentucky stands pretty good from a state to a local level. Now, of course, we still have those issues. When you look outside of just my one little county, you know, there's a lot of issues with broadband, and even using the term broadband, because you know, broadband is just not going to cut it, you know, with the technology and the usage that our kids are using now. You know, it is a critical time for everybody to start advocating for equitable access across the nation, just because of the importance of it, in my opinion. So, again, we have to look at a lot of different things, but, being a gigabit community was something that is in place, and we've just had to kind of keep up with that pace at the school level. And of course, our policies and procedures are that my board has been very gracious to adopt and to provide for our district has been great, because they also are seeing the value more and more of the use of technology, especially in today's times. So we have a lot of those type of activities in our schools and the infrastructure. You do have to have support. When I changed chief academic when I changed my one position that I had at the central office, I incorporated a technology integration specialist that went along with the CEO's position. So, going back to Ann's comments earlier is, you have to have technology staff in your buildings. You cannot do this by yourself or think that teachers alone will just take and go with it. It's critically important that, you have your whole team being resources for your entire school, including your students. So that will be another piece of a procedural thing that I would suggest highly that folks look at when they're contemplating making the full immersion into the use of technology.
Great. So I'm going to try to rapid fire some of these questions here. And so anybody can take them as we go. Question on how have you shifted funds to support a response to remote learning? Anyone want to take that one?
We really haven't shifted funds. The technology piece is a part of our overall budget, so we currently have not had to shift funds to support any of our tech needs through these times recently.
Right, we're the same boat, because we've been at it so long that we didn't have to do anything.
Great, thank you. Are any of you working with your local public education, government TV channels, cable channels, broadcast channels to provide instruction or support your initiatives?
Our State Department of Education is working with Alabama Public Television to do just that. They have been super to provide model lessons and activities and things that would support learning. And of course, that is available in broadcast all throughout our state. So they were at the table very early when learning changed, and we're very appreciative of their efforts throughout Alabama.
And I'll just add, Kim, if it's okay, that, through KVAC and with Mr. Hawkins, director there, they have a massive website, and it's called theholler.org, that really houses a lot of the work. It's the general house of all the 17 school districts that's involved in that. And it's really a nice piece that if you ever wanted to go and see what everybody's doing in our whole area, it's going to be housed right there, along with additional support that he has now in his offices in Hazard to provide support to school districts that may need those. So there's a lot of things out there, but it really does help when you have more than just one or two schools or one or two people on that same page, and it's nice to be able to tie into those resources.
Great. A couple questions about how you're maintaining your technology in terms of laptops and devices. How are you handling repair? And are you engaging students in supporting repair of devices?
I can start us on that one. We have a student technology help desk in which my CEO works with the students, and they basically, if something's needed to be fixed on a Chromebook, we try to captivate a very good, solid junior student who we can get in that particular role for 2 years. And then we're always trying to recycle one. Not recycle is the wrong word to use, but we always try to keep that moving so that there's somebody there the next year to help students with issues along with that. Also, our media centers are very good for that, because that's, media specialists are those folks in your buildings that the traditional librarians are no longer. The media specialists, they have to have a good and in-depth approach on how to work with, how to fix, how to repair, not manually so much, but how to teach using technology. So those are the things that we have in our school district.
Right. We do not have a student support team, but I love that idea, Tim. So I take that right back to Talladega County.
That's fine. That's fine.
Yes, during this time that we've been out of school, we have kind of killed two birds with one stone, so to speak. If students are having difficulty with their device, they can drive through the grab and go food line during our lunch hours that we are distributing food, drop off that Chromebook, we'll give them a replacement, and then have it assessed. Some of the things our tech guys have been able just to troubleshoot over the phone, but we didn't want that to be an excuse for students not being able to continue their learning. So we've really tried to stay on top of that and handle those issues case by case, so that students didn't have any downtime if their device had an issue.
Yeah, we're pretty much in the same situation. We have some students that do help, but we rely on our media specialists or folks that are in our media centers. They do a lot of the minor work. We also have a pretty robust tech staff. So we have folks who travel to each of the buildings and do some of the take on the bigger load. Our students right now can go to our high school, and that's where the tech staff will work with their devices. We also provide office hours during the summer, so the kids can bring them in during the summer and have some of that. We have a call-in helpline, and we also have an email method that they can use for those repairs. I think that one of the big challenges as districts grow into their technology is that fear of the kids breaking them quite often and all of the repairs. And honestly, it hasn't been that bad. It really has not. There will be repairs, there will be breakage. There is the father who gets angry and throws it across the room, unfortunately. And some of those situations do happen, but we're pretty fortunate. We also, our tech staff are trained. We have Lenovo laptops, and so our tech staff are Lenovo trained. So that means that they do in-house training. Lenovo reimburses us, so that helps offset the cost of those repairs, and that's been very beneficial to us.
Great. There's quite a few questions about how you're planning in light of COVID. There's a question around, what do you plan for your students this summer? Are you going to give them a break or double down on distance learning? And then how will the COVID-19 experience inform the classroom experience when students return, and where will hands-on learning fit? So if you can talk a little bit about the summer and then how you're thinking about reentry, that'd be great.
We are doing, hopefully, some work with our students this summer. We're still just waiting on the green light for that. We're hoping to do some in-house instruction with reading summer camps. As far as distance learning this summer, we will be giving our students a break. There are some high school students that will continue with grade recovery and credit recovery at some point during the summer. But, we do feel like we need to respect the time during the summer. And our major priority is to actually have some in-house instruction with elementary students with reading camps. We had those planned before COVID-19, and we're hoping in July to be able to move forward with that type of instruction.
So Tim, you're on mute right now. Can you share a little bit about what your plans are for the summer and reentry?
Sure. We plan on, and we have gotten some good advice from our Kentucky Department of Education. My district team has already been working on a reentry plan for students. The big question is where we had to leave so quick and so fast. I think it's going to be difficult for teachers to really gauge where students are at when they do return. That they're just going to, I think we have to be patient with them as they move into what do their kids really need now. And I think we may have to just step back away from the standards and the curriculum the first week or two for acclimation to occur with students, and that teachers then can see kind of where their kids are at in the next grade level. So we are working on a reentry plan with some guidance, and we're trying to make sure that our kids, when they do return, and our teachers, they're they know where they're at, and the kids, if they need remediation, we provide remediation, and if we need to move forward, we move forward. But we're not there yet.
Great, thank you. We got time for one more question here. So there are what challenge? Someone said, "What isn't working so well for you?" So what challenge are you navigating that's kind of in front of you as you think about heading into the summer and then the new year? Obviously, there's a lot of challenges, but is there one that kind of rises to the top there?
I think if we don't start school back in traditional ways, then the broadband connectivity issue is still going to be our greatest challenge. So we have a lot of people statewide that are working to help us with that, but I think that's going to be the greater challenge for us. We were fortunate when we left in March, all of our students had just completed their benchmark assessments. So we're going to have that data to compare when we re-enter and start new assessments. We're also planning for our elementary students transition classes, K-3, to really drill down and accomplish a lot in the first 9 weeks of the school year in order to catch up and help kids move forward. So we're also working on that reentry plan. But again, if we don't start in a traditional fashion, we're still going to have the issues that we have today, and that's the connectivity. Kind of an interesting byproduct for us. So many of our families that are technologically competent and have the connectivity have opted in some cases for the traditional learning packet. And we don't know why, other than that just seems to build confidence. It's tried and true. And I guess that something in their hand with the pencil and the paper seems to have worked well in a lot of households where parents are there and teaching. And that may go back to the issue of how they were taught. So we had not thought about that as we move forward. But the greatest challenge still will be the connectivity throughout our rural district.
Yeah, there's something about the tried and true, like the good old fashioned phone, right? So Tim could dial in with these broadband issues continue to exist. Thank you, Suzanne. And as you look into kind of the next year, biggest challenge that you're navigating going into this summer and new year?
Biggest challenge, I would say, the biggest concern for us is where our students are, where the gaps are. How are we going to address that? It would be a very diverse population now in terms of needs and skill levels.
Great, thank you. And then Tim, as we wrap up, what's kind of the biggest challenge on your plate as you look forward?
Well, I think, for us, it's the continuation of the understanding that, our learning right now and doing it digitally and remotely, I think we live in the best of both worlds. When you can do both good, both in person as well as remote, I think that's kind of the best case scenario. And I think it's just going to be a continuation for us. But I still believe we need to advocate for connectivity, reducing that digital divide that exists throughout our country, and just pushing and keep pushing for access and accountability, because I think it's that important. So that's more of a general talking point for me, but I see the value of it because we have it, and I really am passionate about trying to move forward with that initiative. So I would just encourage folks to think about those and what can we do to advocate for all students in our nation to be connected to the internet, and a high-speed internet at that.
Thank you. Hashtag Connect Kids Now. All right. Well, we're going to thank you for all of you that have joined us today. Thank you, Suzanne, Ann, and Tim, for sharing your thoughts of how you're navigating digital equity in rural districts. Thank you for those that have attended. I hope we covered as many questions as we could in this short amount of time. I will share that the League of Innovative Schools is over 30% of our districts are rural districts. So there's a lot of districts out there that are in rural areas that are really working around how do you provide access to students and digital tools and learning that's adaptive to students' needs. So
Yes, thank you once again to our panelists, Tim, Suzanne, and you guys have been great. And that's the product of a rural school district. Districts do matter. So once again, thank you guys. And as we wrap up, please make sure to join us next week. We'll have our very own CEO, Karen Cater, and the FCC Commissioner, Ms. Jessica Rosenworshel. Super excited about that. Same time, same place next week. See you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.